The Lumix LX100II is a lightweight compact camera with a powerful Micro Four Thirds sensor and many desirable features, and is being my go-to camera for casual photographing ever since I bought it. In this video, I want to talk about the pros and cons of the camera based on my own experience. First of all, one of the biggest selling points of this camera is its physical build. A tiny, unassuming compact camera with Micro Four Thirds sensor inside at 392 grams. That weighs almost nothing compared to cameras with a similar caliber sensors. The size allows you to fit it inside your pocket comfortably when lens is collapsed. Yes, there are interchangeable cameras combos at a similar size, for example Lumix GH6 with Lumix 12-32mm f3.5 to 5.6 lens, also pocketable when lens is collapsed. However, you get much better lens with the LX100II being a Leica certified 24-75mm full-frame equivalent focal length with the variable maximum apertures from f1.7 to 2.8. If you put this side by side with the Leica 12-60 lens, this one is noticeably smaller and nimbler, yet the technical features are very close. At wide end, the lens offers a very bright max aperture f1.7. The sensor is only partially utilized in this camera. To maximize the resolution available, you need to shoot in 4:3 aspect ratio. That gets 17 megapixel image, which accounts for 85% of the entire 20 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor featured in this camera. So the shallow depth of field you can achieve with this lens is going to be just about the same level as Leica 12-60mm f2.8 to 4 lens. Some might be disappointed because f1.7 to 2.8 sound really awesome and raised their expectations a lot. But in my opinion, this really is some exceptional level of subject separation achieved in such a tiny camera lens. The bokeh created by this lens is pretty decent for such a tiny camera. Especially when shooting very close up, you can get quite nice subject separation. Can you shoot portrait with this lens? Well, you can expect as much bokeh as the Leica 12-60 f2.8 to 4, so no if you want professional headshot look. You need interchangeable camera and fast prime lens for that. But for me, this camera is only meant to shoot street, landscape while I'm traveling light or going out snap some shots in discreet and casual manner. So completely different purpose than shooting portraiture. The camera body design is another big selling point, resembling classic rangefinder film cameras a lot from the top-down view. Thanks to the implementation of a full physical manual control dials on camera, you have shutter speed dial, exposure compensation dial on the body, and aperture ring on the lens. Literally no need to fumble in the menu to switch exposure mode. You have the maximum control of the camera straight from the physical body. For a lot of people, the tactile feel offers a way superior shooting experience. And on an aesthetic level, the design is just much more beautiful than most contemporary rangefinder-style mirrorless cameras, with very few dials on top. This camera looks near identical to its sister camera Leica Deluxe 7. Most noticeable difference being the presence of a thumb and finger grip on the right side of the camera, which don't come with the Leica version. So this is a big win for the Lumix fans. We are basically paying less to get more. A unique toggle switch is on top of the lens which controls the aspect ratio of the image. You have 4 classic options. 3:2 gives you 16 megapixel resolution, 16:9 gives you 15 megapixel, and 1:1 gives you the least resolution, which is 12.5 megapixel. Might as well crop it in post if you want to shoot square images. And 4:3, as I mentioned before, gives you 17 megapixel resolution, slightly more than 3:2. Because the different aspect ratio settings utilize different crops of the sensor, you actually get horizontally the widest field of view out of all combinations with 16:9. Personally, I like to keep it on 4:3 most of the time, unless I really want to stretch the length of the image, then 16:9, or 3:2 if I'm on a different mood. It's all up to you. The image quality is pretty good. I never pixel peep when I shoot with this camera anyway. In my experience, as long as the aperture setting is appropriate for the occasion, you will get sharp image from corner to corner. I've never noticed any soft spot or weak performance from this lens. Shooting directly against the sun may get you some flares, but that's expected. A zoom rocker underneath the shutter button allows you to zoom in and out smoothly, especially helpful in video. Personally, I find the zoom speed way too slow. As a compact camera, I wish it had more speedy, nimble zooming, allowing fast image capturing on the street. Alternatively, you can use the zoom ring on the lens to zoom. You can choose to zoom smoothly like any other fly-by-wire zoom ring or step zoom, which makes each turn of the ring go one step at a time among the following focal lengths: 24, 28, 35, 50, 70, 75. Again, if you want to go from 24 to 75, it will take more than a few seconds, which is one of the biggest drawbacks of this lens. Comparing to normal mechanical zoom lenses, you could go from 24 to 75 in one swift action in less than 1 second. The lens will protrude as soon as you turn on the camera. The length of the barrel sticking out increases steadily as you go from 24 to 75. On the side of the lens, there is a focus mode toggle switch. You can choose among autofocus, manual focus, and macro autofocus very quickly. Macro mode allows you to quickly find focus in close shooting situations. Yes, this camera focuses very close to the subject, like many other micro four thirds lenses do. Another big plus for this camera system. The viewfinder features the same old technology as GH6. If you are like me, you are going to see a lot of color tearing. It is not pleasant to use. Resolution is not great, so basically I disabled it and only use the back LCD display, which unfortunately doesn't tilt or articulate in any shape or form. It's just fixed on the back of the camera, making low-angle shots a little bit difficult. The display has full touchscreen functions, just like most Lumix cameras. Very intuitive to use, good sensitivity. I do find it annoying that sometimes I accidentally touch the screen and it will set autofocus point to that particular spot that I touched. To solve that, you can lock the control of the camera at one click of a button. And yes, the tiny camera body features quite a few fully customizable buttons, very impressive. Let's talk about the aperture and focal length. The physical specs of the lens is 10.9 to 34mm f1.7 to 2.8. Since the image out of the sensor is cropped in, the focal length translates to 12 to 37.4mm in micro four thirds terms, which is 24 to 75mm in full frame terms as mentioned before. Pretty standard zoom range. 24 is wide for most day-to-day shoot, and 75 is just a touch more generous than the classic 70mm. You probably wouldn't feel a difference though. The aperture decreases steadily as you zoom further in. It goes like this. At 24mm it is f1.7, 28mm f2.0, 30mm f2.1, 35mm f2.3, 50mm f2.7, 52 onward to 75mm it is f2.8. Burst mode is 11 frames per second max, but I only shoot low burst mode, basically single shot. Due to the type of shoot I use this camera for, I don't think anyone's getting this camera for sport. The old contrast-based autofocus technology from Lumix won't keep up anyway. Low light is meh. You might think that at f1.7 it should do pretty well, but from what I see, it doesn't differ much from other micro four thirds cameras with f2.8 to 4 lens on. Now about the video capabilities, it shoots up to 4K 30p in 100 megabits per second and 1080p 60p in just 28 megabits per second in MP4 format. Nothing impressive. The 4K will crop in a little. At its widest focal length of 24mm full frame equivalence, it will become 30mm after the crop. And at the longest end, instead of 75mm, it will become 94mm in 4K. The 4K image quality is pretty decent. 1080p doesn't crop, but image quality is not as great as GH5, G9 or GH6, these high-end cameras, but certainly enough for casual vlogging. While the smooth zoom by the zoom rocker is a nice touch, a big drawback for video is its lack of a sensor stabilization. The lens offers optical stabilization, however, the effect is rather underwhelming. Actually, I don't think the stabilization is even activated during video. All video shots by this camera is very shaky, even if you stay completely stationary. There is no mic input or headphone output. Onboard mic is borderline terrible, just like the GH6. No flipped screen, no CineD or vlog profiles, all makes this camera very video unfriendly. But I don't think anyone is going to purchase this camera for its video capability ever. What it has, 4K 30p and 1080p 60p are just the bare minimum in today's age of mirrorless camera technology. Overall, underwhelming but understandable as it is made for photographers. Another big problem with this camera is its poor weather sealing, poor dust-proof capability. I bought it secondhand and it came with a big chunk of dust on the sensor, which is impossible to clean. I tried to shake it, knock it, and vibrate it. The dust wouldn't budge. When I step down the aperture, the dust is very much visible on the top right of the image, very distracting if the background is clean. So some healing in post is a must. Luckily, it's pretty quick in Lightroom. Press H and click over the black dot and it's fixed in a second. Yes, it's a bit annoying having to fix it for almost every single picture I take, but I saved a couple $100 buying a used camera, so fair. So far, I haven't introduced any new dust inside the lens or on the sensor, so at least there's that. Battery life is okay. Same battery as GX85 type of cameras. What I wish it had, or what the next iteration of this series should have, is better EVF, tilt screen, sensor stabilization, faster zoom mechanism, higher resolution sensor. This would definitely make a killer camera, but it would be bulkier if implemented. Honestly, I don't think this would be possible. I'm not even sure if they're going to make another one of these point-and-shoot compact photography camera anymore. Anyway, to conclude today's review, I'd say this is a pretty good purchase on second-hand market for photography purchase only. The Leica Deluxe 7 is a near identical camera, both inside and outside, costs quite a lot more money than this LX100. So if you are interested in a budget Leica, this is it. A beautifully designed, retro-looking compact camera that gives you full control during photographing experience, offers great image quality and lens specs in a tiny package. All the drawbacks and compromises on this camera I mentioned before are worth considering, but I think the benefit outweighs the negatives significantly. To simplify it, is a camera that looks gorgeous, feels amazing to shoot, and the pictures come out of it are beautiful too. Thanks for watching.